In this video, we will continue to talk about Nurbs modeling in Maya. We started with some really simple examples using the Extrude tool and the planer, and we created some of some flat surfaces at the beginning, and then we continued to experiment with the Extrude tool here with using some of the vector graphics imported from Illustrator, and also some raster images with pixels that we first turned into vectors and then we used for extrusion. So this is different ways we can use the Nurbs modeling and in general Maya. So you can use it for architecture or interior design or engineering. You can also use it for graphic design. So it has a lot of different uses. And using the curves as a starting point, you can see here that we can start to create some surfaces and then some poly surfaces and then some solids. So these are the steps that we usually do in Nurbs modeling. You can do Nurbs modeling here in Maya in a really simple fashion, or you can go to Rhinoceros 3D, which is a little bit more advanced. It has a lot more tools. So in this video, we will continue and we will use some more reference to create here some of the Nurbs objects. We're going to use the Revolve tool first, and then we're going to see also the other modeling tools that we have here in Maya, like the Loft Nurbs and the sweep, the Nurbs sweep. So we don't have many tools, but still we got some really useful tools that we can use. And also we will check here the construction history, which is a really handy feature as well. And well, we use that so far because I think it's activated as a default, but I'm gonna show you what that means, what it means to use the history there. So let's start here and try to do something using the lines and the curves that we created when we first talked about 2D editing and 2D drawing in Maya. So first thing here, I'm gonna do a planar, simple planar surface. And also we talked about how the surfaces have two sides. So you always need to check which side are you on. So if it's the wrong side, you need to change that and reverse. You need to invert the direction of the normal in order to have a nice position for the face. So we can also use the surface menu here, and let's reverse direction there at the bottom of the menu, and that's it. So always you need to check if that's positioned in the correct way. Otherwise, in some render engine, you could see empty there if the face is not oriented in the correct way. So it always has to face like that, and there is a normal there, which is a, well, you can think about like an arrow that's perpendicular to the surface, and you always need to check that all the surfaces of your poly surface or your solid are placed in that direction. Now we have history turned on, so we're firstly gonna see how that's gonna work. So you can see here in the outliner that I have the planar surface there, the planar Nurbs surface, and then I have the line which we use to generate that surface, because we know that to create a planar surface we need a planar curve, or in this case a planar drawing. So that's the line there. So I can also rename it in order to find it quickly when I need it. So I'm gonna call this perimeter curve, which represents the perimeter of my architecture, if this is an architecture. And right click with your mouse, and now let's go to the vertices. We saw that we can edit the vertices of the curves using the transform tools like move, rotate, scale. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just moving the vertex of that perimeter line, but what's happening here is that the planar surface is following the position of that point of that vertex. Why? Because this is remembering that, okay, the planar surface was generated using that curve. So this is, I think, the simplest way that I can explain to you how the history feature works. So every time you create a surface or polysurface or a solid starting from a curve, and this is what you usually do when you do Nurbs modeling. So here, for example, I can also use a fillet to round the corners, or I can use perhaps a smooth modifier, or I can, well, basically I can use all the different editing tools that we seen in the previous video to change that curve. And when I change that curve, the planar surface is gonna change accordingly. Now I want to deactivate the history, so to see the difference. So I'm gonna delete the planar surface and I'm going to deactivate the construction history and do that again just to show you the difference. So let's go to planar. Again, we're gonna reverse the direction, and again we're gonna edit the curve in any way that we want. So I'm just going to right click. The quickest thing is to, well, make sure that you are in the correct perimeter curve, so you can do that using the outliner again. Right click, select the vertex, select that and move it, and there you go. So you can see that they are not related anymore, they are not constricted. So we can now modify the original curve without affecting the planar surface. So each time we want to go back and re-edit our geometry, our shape that we created using any curve and any Nurbs modeling tool, we can do that if we have history activated. So I think that's a good option to turn on. Now let's move into the web here. I'm gonna do a quick search because we want to use the Revolve. Now using the Revolve tools, you usually create something that it's like circular. So what you do is get a profile and then make it go around an axis, and that's gonna generate a solid or an object that it's based on a circular. It's based on a circle. So it's a circular extrusion, we can say that. And so you can create like glasses, vases, plates, dishes, or well, anything that it's based on a circle. And just like the architecture that we created before, we should have a flat image or a frontal flat image, something pretty close to 2D, because if we have something perspective or more 3D, well, that's going to be more difficult for us to trace it, to create some vector graphics out of that, some curves. So I will choose this one here because this is not really perfectly in 2D. This is not a perfect front view, but it is quite flat, and it's a drawing, so it's not a picture. It's something a little bit different, something that you could design yourself using your hands and doing a hand drawing. So again, we're gonna create here a free image plane, just as we did for the plan view of the apartment, and we're gonna keep the aspect ratio. That's the most important thing. All the rest we can figure it out later.